Thank you, Michael. Thank you for coming to this session. Let me give you a little bit of a background why this session is very important. We talk about building resilience, and we also have the definition that has the word capacity in it. We heard about it. And we have several times heard in various parallel sessions and plenaries that capacity is very important. But when you ask what kind of capacity you are talking about, who is going to build that capacity? Where is this capacity to be built? Either in the context of resilience or in the context of humanitarian assistance or in the context of long-term development, there is a lot of confusion. And we all know that. And we have been doing capacity strengthening for the past 50 years with various varying degrees of success. And sometimes it is the last thing that people want to do because it's very difficult to do. 25 years ago, when I joined Cornell University after my PhD as a postdoctoral scientist, I was asked to go to Malawi to set up a system for monitoring food security and nutrition because Malawi at that time, early 90s, late 80s, was frequently affected by drought and famine-like conditions, and I took that up. That's the first time for coming to Africa. Went there, met the principal secretary first day, and he was expecting someone with old age like advisor. The title was food security advisor, but I'm 27 years old standing there. He said, "Who sent you here?" Nevertheless, he said, "Look, you can come and do whatever you want in terms of research, but can you build some capacity for us to understand what is happening in terms of food security and nutrition? What are the factors that affect our households? And how can we do our own analysis so that when the World Bank, WFP or IFAD or another organization, FAO, comes in, we are able to tell them what we really need in terms of solving our problems, rather than them telling us we have so much of money to invest and we will go and do our analysis and bring back the policy papers for you." It hit me very hard at that time. I didn't realize that that was happening. I didn't even know that. And that is when we started putting a system in place in Malawi of collecting information from the field so that the data on food security indicators, causal factors can be quickly analyzed and fed into the policy-making system, not only at the national level, but at the decentralized level, district level. But that quickly became a challenge because there was no capacity. Capacity in terms of human capacity, capacity to organize the data collection systems, processing, and bringing them to policy-making. And that is right there one example of how a food system in a country can be strengthened in terms of capacity so that it can face the challenges as it came. Malawi is much better now in terms of handling situations. The country has gone through several rounds of droughts after that. In southern Africa, pretty much most of the countries can avoid famine now because of the early warning systems that are in place, FEWs that are in place. To some extent, analytical capacity has been built. In Malawi, University of Malawi Bunda College of Agriculture is a Center for Excellence for Agriculture Policy, where I spent 2 years teaching there. So we have done a great amount of collaboration and work on the ground, but what did we learn from it? Why some countries are still behind? And what can we do in order to improve the capacity at the individual level, institutional level, and at the system level? And how do we go about doing that in the context of resilience and in terms of long-term development? So in the paper that we produced for this conference, if you want to look at this paper brief number 6 and brief number 13 address the issues of strengthening resilience of the food systems in general. We take a look at subsystems, and for practical purposes or easy for analysis purposes, we look at the production system, markets and trade system, and policy systems. Without understanding how the policy process works, who are the actors and players in the policy process, how they come together, what are their capacities, and how we can build their capacities to effectively contribute to the development of policies and programs, will still be going around and around. We will asking for evidence coming from researchers, flying in and collecting data and producing working papers and journal papers and go out. And then still, we are struggling to convert the research into action on the ground. So the briefs address that issue in terms of how do we strengthen the subsystems to start with. In the production subsystem, we look at the research and innovation systems, for example. Why we are not able to build sustained capacity in agricultural research organizations. What are the incentive mechanisms? Why we train people for the sake of training and they don't come back and do what they're supposed to do because they are given some other jobs. Those are the issues are practical nature in order to build institutions. When we come to market institutions, why value chains fail? Why contract farming does not hold? What are the capacity for rules and regulations, laws to follow? And there are a whole range of capacity that is missing. At the end, the policy that I already talked about, policy system building. Nigeria, take for example, Action Aid single-handedly is holding the agriculture ministry responsible for the policy. Training smallholder farmers to ask the right questions from the policy-making systems, to participate in policy-making process. That's capacity building at the farmers level. We also need to think about capacity building at the institutional levels. And what are the constraints? The training funding for training is old-fashioned now. We need to look at holistically how we can build the systems. It's going to take time. It will take 20 years minimum. But we have to invest repeatedly. But in the meantime, we find all sorts of distractions. Capacity strengthening is a long-term investment, and we need to continue to do that. It's not attractive, it's hard work, and you need to go after it year after year. But when it is done, when the local institutions take responsibility and ownership, then you can say they can do for themselves. Until that time, there is need for investment in capacity and doing it right. That requires assessing the capacity needs right and filling the gaps with right types of investment, prioritizing the investment, monitoring and evaluation of the capacity building that we do, and how that is followed up in terms of good management incentives and the system that can support this capacity in order to effectively use that capacity in achieving the goals we set for ourselves, whether it is emergency or medium-term planning or policy, long-term policies such as CAADP, for example. To give an example, we are currently working with about 15 countries to set up the monitoring and evaluation system, which is already there to some extent, but how these systems can actually function in order to meet the goals of CAADP. How can it be evaluated in terms of the programs and policies that are put in place to come back and tell the ministers of agriculture and the principal secretaries and joint secretaries of agriculture that this is not working, this is working because of this. That capacity is crucial if you are going to make any change on the ground. But we need to understand where the capacity gaps are, long-term capacity and short-term capacity, and what are the incentives that should be in place in order to build that capacity. We use in the brief 13, we use agricultural extension system as an example of how do we build that system for resilience. There is not much of literature out there, but we try to bring this resilience literature and the extension literature together to see how people on the ground who are meeting with the farmers, working with the farmers on a regular basis, can build the resilience of the capacity, the communities that we are talking about. We talked about building communities. There are a lot of challenges in terms of how you bring the multiple nature of the services that you have to provide when you are in a community level. Natural resources, food security, nutrition, health, marketing, connecting farmers to markets. It's a lot of work. But how do you go from technology transfer capacity to social entrepreneurship capacity for extension workers? That needs to be thought through. So that's the policy brief I encourage you to read. And at this stage, let me stop and open it for others to contribute, and then we can talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suresh. I think basically what you're saying is that we should look at the various subsystems and also look at what are the gaps and make sure that whatever capacity is provided is monitored and evaluated at different levels.